I'm going live. And three,
Ah,
2, 1. And we should be live on Bofi Doth. There we go. We are live on YouTube and we are live on TikTok. Hello to
sounds.
everyone as everyone comes in. I don't know if any of the mods will come in. Luton normally appears like halfway through, does a random poll, and then leaves. That's the amount
Yeah,
of
sounds about right.
That's the amount of
That sounds right, I
moderation he
think.
actually does. But okay, guys. So last week, if you'll remember, by popular demand, I looked into the moon landing conspiracy because you guys like suffering. So far, you've maybe looked at the ancient apocalypse hypothesis, the phantom time hypothesis, and now you made me look into the moon landing conspiracy. However, during that live stream, Count Daedalus came into the chat and was very mad that I hadn't asked him to come on. So today, we are going to conclusively debunk the moon landing conspiracy. Well, there's only one bit I know that I can conclusively debunk because that's how they filmed it, or how they claim it was filmed. Because as a film student, I can be like, that's. And none of you have touched a camera or a lighting setup in your life.
Well, a lot of it does come down to that, though, doesn't it? They just don't understand how cameras work.
Why is there no stars?
Well, I mean,
Oh,
do you want to start over on that one because that's the easiest one to debunk? Is the why is there no stars?
well, there's no stars because the exposure's too low.
Exactly, but not.
The thing is, though, there are actually pictures where they've taken pictures of the Earth while they're moving away from it, where you can see stars, but you can't make anything out on the Earth because it's oversaturated.
Yeah, because the amount of, I mean, to get that effect. Also, hi to Josh
Overexposed,
over on TikTok.
rather.
Yeah. Hi to Josh over on TikTok. And hi to Pumpkin Bear Mod, and the King is over on YouTube. Glad to see you guys. When I see do Flat Earth next, I will need alcohol to do Flat Earth.
Yeah, so do actually, I do have a beer.
You're going in already. The stress is already getting to you. But the issue is to create the lighting setup to create stars. The easiest, and I've sat down and I've actually thought about this. The easiest way you could do on a low budget, actually no, even then it would be incredibly expensive. You would have to get similar to the lights I've got, but then you'd have to get a sheet with holes poked through it, and then you would have to shine the light directly through. But the issue is that's going to be too bright, and they wouldn't twinkle. So the only way that they
supposedly stars don't twinkle when outside of the atmosphere anyway.
Okay, yeah, that would make sense. That would make sense actually because they're pushing the light.
It's just that atmospheric disruption.
Yeah. Well, that's.
And the only reason why planets don't appear to twinkle is because they're so much brighter and they're closer.
Yeah.
But they do still flicker a little bit when they're when they're very low on the horizon.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like for example, I'm always going to remember when I was on a school trip to the Isle of Wight when I was 11. Jupiter was really low, but like just slightly above the sea, and it was flickering yellow, and it's supposed to be white.
White. But well, no.
Just doing my Hamza Yusuf impression for the Scots.
My main issue with the there should be stars in the background is the only way I can think about is you'd have to get a massive black sheet. You'd have to then have that be stationary so that the lights don't move. The lighting, because a lot of the time I see there's multiple shadows on the moon and therefore it must have been in a studio. You've never stepped foot in a TV studio in your life if you believe that, because the light source is set up perfectly. Like right now, the light source I've got is too powerful, so it aims against the white walls, which then bounces back, and then I've got my main light on to soften it as well. So lighting itself is an exact science. However, I know for a fact that I wouldn't have two shadows because one light source is designed to be overpowered by the other one. If you're getting two shadows, you're a poor producer. And the main crux of your argument was that this was directed by Stanley Kubrick. The greatest film director to ever live couldn't figure out a lighting setup. That's the crux of your. Okay.
Not to mention, I'm pretty sure that would have been exposed by the Soviets, who were desperately trying to disprove the moon landing because it discredited them for the space race.
Yeah, because people forget at that point the Soviets were beating the Americans hands over fist in the space race.
Yeah, they put up the first satellite. They sent the first space probe to Venus.
I thought Venus was after the moon landing, or was some? I know there was a lot
They,
of launches to Venus.
I don't know, I can't remember now, to be honest. I just know that they were the first. They were the first to send a spacecraft to another body.
Yeah.
They when the Americans went for Mars, the Russians went for Venus, and Venus was visited first. So
Yeah. People forget that the Americans were also like when JFK gave that speech, he gave the NASA a 10-year window to get to the moon because the Americans like technologically were that far behind because the
yes,
the only time communists can invent anything is when they're in competition with capitalism. um P Funk Poet on YouTube side says Soviets got something to Venus first, didn't go to plan though. No, and
yes, it did. They were expected to. They were expecting to crash into an ocean where, I mean, instead it didn't even hit land. It disintegrated 15 miles up because the temperature was too fucking hot.
One of the probes they gave they had a parachute set on it, and then the parachutes just kept melting. So
Yep.
on all of the Venus
Actually, it was so bad. It was so bad the launches to Venus that the Soviets decided, as communists usually do, they go way OTT to try and test their spacecraft so that they could land on Venus. They built the world's biggest pressure cooker. They literally tested their spacecraft to the limit, and the most they could do. This should tell you just how destructive the atmosphere of Venus is. The closest they could achieve was a spacecraft that would last for 1 hour.
Yeah, I don't because all of the Soviet craft on Venus, like whereas on Mars they say that one day there'll be tourism where you go and find all the old rovers. If we do actually manage to colonize Venus by some miracle, there will be absolutely nothing there because it's all melted away.
No, it's all been completely disintegrated.
Yep. Pumpkin Bear says, "Rest in peace to all of the Soviet dogs that died in the space race." Yes, and the Americans sent a chimp up, I believe, or did the chimp come back down?
I don't know.
Fairly certain they killed the chimp. Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me.
But yeah. So looking back at the next, the next argument that they put forward, the astronauts were paid actors count.
Were they really? Source? Trust me, bro.
It's my favourite one because I'm like, Buzz Aldrin punched a man because of this. Like,
well, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised, to be honest. If you had your life, if you had your life achievement of doing something that no one else has ever managed to do, and some lunatic who stinks of piss comes up to you saying that you're a paid actor, like, what are you going to do?
Yep. You're gonna spin his jaw. You're gonna absolutely take him out.
It's not gonna be friend. It's not necessarily going to be friendly. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. Moving on to more sciencey stuff. So, this is a genuine
paid actors.
This is
actors.
This is a genuine thing.
All of them. So that would mean that all of them are paid actors.
Every single Apollo mission.
Every single Apollo mission has been a paid actor. Even Captain Gene Cernan, the last person to step foot on a celestial body besides the Earth.
How did
the
title was that?
And then all of the people that were manning the mission would have to be every single mission would have to be paid up as well as all the other space programs across the world would have to be paid up as well. That's an awful lot of money, and you'll have to forgive me, but I don't believe you because someone would blow the whistle.
Yeah, you
wouldn't be able to keep something like that a secret. It's too fucking big.
If you think they've got to not only pay the astronauts, they have to pay everyone in that control room. At the minimum. Not to mention,
at the minimum. Like I say, it would have the amount. Considering how many tens of thousands of people that would have involved, maybe even 100,000.
Yep.
And you consider government scandals that are only known by a few people, they still get out. There's only a few people.
Well, the ones we know about. There's some a lot of them that still do manage, but I get what you mean. I get what you mean because the second there's money involved, someone would have gone to the papers at some point. The only way I can genuinely think, and like this is obviously not me siding with the conspiracy theorists. This is me like playing devil's advocate. The only way I could genuinely think that would work is if the people in the control room believed it was real.
Yeah, I could see that.
Which means you've got to trick a load of scientists that they're not actually looking at the moon.
That would be incredibly difficult, not to mention stupid to do, because considering they're actively communicating with them as it's going along.
Yeah. Then the next one I'll bring up, because I see it repeated a lot.
What's that other one they like to use? We haven't gone beyond low Earth orbit because of the Van Allen belts.
The sites. So it's more of a. See, obviously, this is not me attacking Christians or anyone with a religious belief. It's more of the flat Earth fanatics. There's a thing called the firmament in the Bible, which a lot of people say is
the firmament isn't real.
Yeah, but I've spoken to a few Christians about this, and they're all like, "Yeah, no, it's like very clearly metaphorical the way it's written down." But to explain it for everyone at home, the flat earthers believe that there is a glass dome layer, and they use Elon Musk's spaceship crashing in the recent one that exploded, and Elon Musk was like, "Oh, yeah, no, we've figured out what went wrong." They're saying that Elon Musk is lying, and he actually hit the firmament, and that's why the ship exploded.
Surprised there isn't a big visible dent in the fucking glass.
So, Count, would you like to debunk the firmament quickly since you brought it up? I was going to give you an easy one on the footprints, but what?
I wasn't gonna say the firmament. I was gonna say the Van Allen belts.
What's the Van Allen belt then? Because the one I've heard is the
Van Allen belts. The Van Allen belt is basically every single planet has a small belt of radiation that goes around the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's slightly weaker at the poles than it is at the equator, or the other way around. I can't remember which one. But there's one around Earth, and this was originally discovered by one of the first satellites, that there was radiation surrounding the planet. But that radiation isn't as intense as people like to make it out as, because people have survived within that environment before. Like it's not like a lethal dose of radiation where you go up to the elephant's foot in Chernobyl, for example.
So is that
if you went into orbit around Jupiter, however, you'd be dead instantly.
So is that like a lot of obviously for me, I'm at higher risk of retinal detachment and stuff like that. Is that why a lot of astronauts get similar eye conditions like cataracts or retinal detachment and stuff?
Sort of.
I've roughly heard that before. It's been a long time since I've gotten into space stuff, which brings me perfectly to my big point. The footprints. I've seen a lot of conspiracy theorists claim, which I can't wait for your reaction to this. You've definitely heard this one before. They claim that the footprints still being there means that they didn't go there because it's like, so it means it was filmed. It was filmed in a studio.
How?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
How? How does that mean?
So I've seen this genuine claim. The footprints being there. I saw someone say it's because there's no wind, and the wind would have blown a real footprint on the moon away, even though there is no wind on the moon.
That's true to an extent. If there was wind, it would have been blown away. You need some kind of disruption and disturbance up there. But the reality is the moon is an airless ball. It's completely geologically dead. There's no earthquakes. There's no erosion or anything like that. It has been how it is today is how it's been for nearly 4 billion years. It's completely dead. There's nothing up there. It's not like here where you get wind, you get shifting continents, you get earthquakes, you get volcanoes. It's completely dead up there. Whatever's there stays there for billions of years. The same with the craters.
And also, well, I think the biggest one would probably be the windows. Like to our side of the argument is the mirrors that are up there, because can't you still reflect like light onto the mirrors and it bounces back and can be received?
You can, but you need a powerful laser.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
You need a powerful laser. It's not. I don't think it's something you can necessarily do with a pointer.
Yeah, like that's what I mean. Yeah. It would have to be a very powerful pointer. I mean, there's still computers that read it back. So
Yes,
my question to the conspiracy theorists is
it
how
would
does
be
that?
very faint as
Yeah,
well. It'd be extremely faint.
you probably
You
wouldn't
would
see it with the
get
eye.
it back, but it would be extremely faint. And as anyone who's ever pointed a beam of light before should know, is that it goes like that.
Yeah, yeah,
It doesn't just
widens as
stay.
time
It
goes
doesn't
on.
just stay a line.
I also do have another big question because we're gonna. I can already say we've already had one tangent about Venus, so a lot of this is probably going to be end up being tangents. But the one they
That's why
bring
it's so
up,
dangerous for aircraft.
yeah, the one they bring up a lot is obviously it goes back to the stars, and I know that you've done some what not it's not regular photography where you take the photograph through your telescope.
Astrophotography.
Yeah, I know you've done some astrophotography. So a lot of them are saying a lot of the rebuttals is that you overlay the images to get a clearer image. So they're saying that because there's no atmosphere and stuff, the space images should be clearer. You should get a better shot of the stars, and the only way that you could actually get a clear image would be overlaying it with repeated images. So how does that work? Like, I've
Well,
seen you do it before, but I don't
if you
understand the process.
it's not really so much taking pictures; it's video footage.
Okay.
Because with video footage, you have more frames. I
Yes.
use I use a program to do it because I couldn't do it manually because I couldn't figure it out. But it's essentially it takes about 1 minute's worth of footage, so that's about 1,000 different shots. It takes the best ones and sort of combines them all together.
So over a process. It's basically like
So it's called
fun,
stack. It's called stacking,
which then gives the clear image. So
which then gives.
why can't you just take the one image then?
You
What is
can take the one image, but it won't be as detailed because there's a lot of atmospheric disturbance. Your best bet for taking pictures with regards to astrophotography is if something is directly above you, you'll have less atmospheric disturbance. But if it's low on the horizon, there's more atmosphere for it to travel through, so it's more distorted.
so the conspiracy theorists would argue though that there is no atmospheric disturbance on the moon. So why would you still need to stack to get a clearer image on the moon?
Well, you wouldn't. You wouldn't need to stack because there's no atmosphere. You would have a clear image.
Yeah, but that would mean that the issue with the lights comes back in.
Well,
That's their argue is the lights should have been clear in the first place. There should be more evidence of light, like these stars in the back. Obviously, I know you have to turn up the lighting, which you've already debunked, but they're saying there should be more evidence of those stars.
You'd have to point a camera directly above the sky. You'd have to point it away from the surface, which they have done. There are pictures that the astronauts did take of the stars, but people just haven't seen them. I've seen them because I've been able to look them up.
So
I'll try and find them. I'll try and find one now. Actually, I'll do it on my phone and show it.
So it would be like, so you're saying that the reason the actual light from the moon is what would be the main source of erasure of that information on the camera?
It's the light from the moon and the light from the Earth, depending on which way you look at. Because you look at all these pictures from the moon, it's always got the surface at the bottom.
Yes, which is very
which is constantly blocking it out. It's just like taking a pic. It's like trying to take a picture of a patch of sky, and there's distant light pollution from a city, or there's a street light in front of you.
100% agreed. While you're looking that up, I'm going to go through some of the comments.
Go for it.
Right. Where did I last read? The Shining proves the moon landing was faked. I don't know if you know, but that's a book and a film, so I don't think that's solid evidence. Animal testing was involved. Yes, we did do a lot of animal testing for our science. The probe crash landed. The antenna was on the ground, and the only thing it could transmit was temperature. Ironically, the reason it crashed.
Here you go. Apollo 16.
So that is from direct. So when there's no other light pollution directly from the moon, they could do it.
When there's no other light in the way, you could get a banging picture of the stars. That's why we have space telescopes, because Hubble and James Webb could take much better pictures of much more detail than any telescope on the ground.
Because there's
it's also why they tend to put telescopes on top of mountains rather than next rather than on a small hill.
So what's the difference between, say, the James Hubble and then the SETI telescopes, for example?
James Webb for a start is much bigger than Hubble. Telescopes like SETI, they're for different purposes.
Okay.
James Webb and Hubble kind of do a bit of everything, whereas things like SETI were set up for specific things, like hunting for other planets around other stars.
Yeah. And whereas doesn't SETI focus more on the audio side of things? Okay, that makes sense to me.
I believe so.
See, this is where, like,
James Webb is also, whereas Hubble is in orbit around Earth, James Webb is much further away. It's actually orbiting the sun.
Why is it so close to the sun? Surely you'd want it further out.
It's not close to the sun. It's the same distance from the sun as the Earth is. It's just in a different position.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
There's a specific term for it. I think it's called the Lagrange point.
Yeah. So it's just in a different orbit, basically.
Yeah.
Philcon said Soviet probe soup. Apollo 15 went to the moon in the 70s. I don't know how true that is.
Pretty sure it did.
There's been quite a few land on the moon. Also, going back
Yeah,
to what you said earlier,
1971.
how depressing a title is it to be the last man on the moon at current? Like, to know that we've not bothered to go back or go up. Because I've always thought if we go, space travel will end up being like something like an Alien. Like, it will be private companies.
Well, that was the whole purpose of what Elon Musk and later on Richard Branson and what's his face? Amazon guy.
Jeff Bezos.
That's him.
Richard Branson's not going anywhere.
That's the whole reason why they're going. They're trying to start up space travel again to try and make it affordable for other people to do.
I think it'll be because we're probably 4,000 or 5,000 years off of like Star Trek level, like warp core transport. I think that Neil deGrasse.
I don't even know if that's even possible, to be honest.
So you think we'll always be colonizing the galaxy over millions of years rather than like?
Yeah, I think hyperspace travel and stuff like that. I think that purely is just a work of fiction. I don't think it's ever going to actually happen. The amount of energy you would need for that.
If there's one thing with humanity, I think given enough time, we will figure out a way to do anything.
Yeah, maybe.
But I think that that Star Trek travel is probably more plausible than Star Wars, because Star Wars light speed, where you like actually flying through hyperspace. I think Star Trek, where you bend. I think the way their warp cores is they bend reality. And they I'm not 100% certain on the science they use, but I think that I've heard it multiple times. The one where you bend like space and time, and you basically form a little mini wormhole, that would be the way through. However, as many scientists have pointed out, that would highly likely rip space apart. NASA is too big to pay off. Well, I've seen some very.
I don't think it is
very credible Sorry, go on.
People say that, but NASA is constantly begging for money. Like it's not like NASA has shitloads of money. They're constantly begging Congress for money, and Congress is always reluctant to do it because you've got a lot of religious lunatics in Congress who think that it's a complete waste of time.
Also,
the only thing that's important is God. Why are you bothering trying to get money out of the taxpayer to send spacecraft to the moon when we've got a perfectly good God in the sky?
Yeah. I want to say thank you to Josh and bless you, and Josh for the crocodile, and I can't pronounce your name. Why, but the guy who sent the tiny dinosaur. Thank you for those. Tepes, I don't know, man. Sounds like communist propaganda. Luckily, we have space lasers, and there's a lot of light pollution on Earth. The biggest science thing that proves it is the mirrors. Yes, we was going over the mirrors earlier. Bring back Pluto, free to play. How do you feel about Pluto being degraded as a?
I don't like it because I grew up knowing the 9 planets, but at the same time, I understand why it was done.
Isn't the moon bigger than Pluto? I think that's one of the
reasons.
Yes,
quite a lot of moons are bigger than Pluto. Like it's actually kind of tragic because we had this problem before. Like in the 1700s, actually, I think it was the 1700s, around that time, an astronomer discovered a small object between Mars and Jupiter called Ceres.
Yeah.
And at the time, this thing was considered a planet because it orbited the sun. And then they discovered another one around the same size called Vesta. And then another one called Juno. And then suddenly they were just discovering lots and lots and lots of similar sized objects, even smaller than that. And then it got to a point where they had to think, right, we've got so many of these. Are we sure they're actually planets? Because otherwise kids are going to be learning in school the 15,000 planets of the solar system. So they invented a new class of body called asteroids. But then in the 1930s, they discovered Pluto. Then when they first discovered it, they put it around the size of Earth, but more and more adjustments reduced it more and more and more. And then they discovered it had a moon half the size of it.
Wait, Pluto has a moon?
It has 5.
How has such a small astral object got so many moons?
It has a moon. It has a moon half the size of it called Charon, and then it has 4 others that are teeny tiny, like less than 100 kilometers in diameter.
So if it's so small, how do those? I mean, I'm assuming that the moons themselves must be extra tiny if they're going to not hit each other.
Well, Pluto and Charon kind of orbit each other.
Oh, so it's more like a dual.
It's kind of like as Charon moves around Pluto is also moving around as well a little bit because of the mass. They've got the mass of the two bodies is so similar that they've got a barycenter where they don't orbit each other. They orbit where the center of mass is. But yeah, when they discovered Pluto, they thought it was the same size as the Earth. In the 70s, they found its moon. They realized that its orbit was really weird, whereas all the other planets were down here. Pluto was going all the way around like this.
Oh, so it doesn't do the regular orbit as everyone else does. Pluto's I'm not doing my own thing.
It's really inclined. It's a really inclined orbit, and at one point in its orbit, it actually takes it closer to the sun than Neptune. So it's a really weird body. But then they started discovering loads of other bodies similar to it, like Sedna, Eris. Sound familiar? Yeah. And then they realised, hang on, we've been here before. Are we sure this thing's actually a planet when it's got loads of other bodies similar to it around that area? They designated Pluto a dwarf planet. And they designated that whole region the Kuiper Belt.
Yeah, the Kuiper Belt's... So isn't Pluto in constant danger of being consistently bombarded if it's so deep in the Kuiper Belt then?
Not really. Same way that it... I think people see... when people say asteroid belt and Kuiper Belt, they imagine... like the asteroid belt in Empire Strikes Back, where everything's into each other.
Yeah, that's what I imagine when you say asteroid belt. Yeah,
these things are thousands of miles, tens of thousands of kilometers apart from each other. They never hit each other.
Okay, that's completely changed how I view space.
Maybe in the early days, it was a bit more catastrophic, but now not so much.
Yeah, because whenever someone says asteroid belt, I always imagine the classic
Empire Strikes Back. You've got asteroids flying all over the place, one of them smashing into the other.
Yeah.
But no, chaos. In 2006, they came up with the official definition of a planet. So it has to orbit the sun, it has to be a sphere, and it has to have cleared its neighbourhood of all other objects, which Pluto and Ceres have not.
Is that why whenever we discuss extraterrestrial life and outside the solar system, it's always referred to as exoplanets?
No, an exoplanet just means a planet that's not in orbit around our sun.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Why they say
exo just means extrasolar.
Okay, that makes sense. That's what I meant. Because obviously, if the classification of a planet is it has to orbit the sun, it makes sense that we'd then have to have a new classification.
I still remember the good old days when everyone was baffled that the exoplanets that we were finding, they were all basically Jupiters, but closer to the sun than Mercury is. Where it actually turned out that all of these planets they were discovering around other stars, they were just massive Jupiters or massive Neptunes, and it started to look as if the solar system was weird and all of these things were normal.
Yeah, there was a time when we believed that like Earth like planets were a complete anomaly, but now we know they're quite common as far as I know.
There is one class of planet that is completely absent from the solar system, and that's called a super Earth. For some reason, we don't
Yes.
have one.
I was literally about to ask you about what is your thoughts on, because people are saying that they're like in the science fiction program the Orville, they actually go to a super Earth because one of the head of security is like this little woman, but she's really really strong 'cause she grew up on like a Jupiter sized version of Earth because the gravity's so
Gee.
strong. But if anyone goes, whenever they go to her planet, they have to wear a special suit because otherwise they just go squish.
Yeah, they would get crushed into oblivion.
Do
They
you
would
think
scream, and then that's it.
do you think life would be possible on that sort of planet? Like, I don't think like our size would be possible because the density of their bones would have to be insane.
I mean, I don't think it's possible, but maybe. I mean, my big thing has always been, okay, this is stuff that makes sense. But what about and things that we understand? But what about things that we don't understand? I've been a long proponent of because scientists are looking for life in conditions like ours because, well, we know that life exists here, so we're looking for places that are similar.
Yeah,
But I've always been someone that says, well, who's to say that life doesn't need sunlight or temperate climate?
yeah, I agree.
Because my biggest argument for that is that we found life at the bottom of the ocean in the deep sea vents where temperatures are excruciating and pressure is higher than that on Venus. So
Yeah, fair enough. Right, let's get a
we're
few
getting
more.
off topic.
Yeah, no, I mean to be fair, we've already we debunked it within the first 15 minutes. That's why I was struggling. I was like, I don't know what else to bring up apart from the they believe that James Bond, the movie James Bond, he goes onto a film set. In one of the James Bond films, he goes onto a film set, and then they believe that that was the elites telling us that they faked it because he's on a film set of them in the moon, in the middle of
Yes,
the
because
desert.
a film set of an alien place could never ever be created. It has to be fake.
Actually, that brings up another point I've just remembered. So the way the astronauts move apparently doesn't look like it's in zero gravity. And I've seen some of the footage, and I can
The
understand
moon doesn't
that.
have zero gravity. The
Okay,
moon has
enlighten me.
gravity. The moon has gravity. It's just very, very weak.
So it will pull you back down.
It will. You can jump. That's the thing. You can jump on the moon. You can do all the things that you would do on Earth. You would if you jumped on the moon, you would go slightly higher because it's like a fifth the size of the Earth, maybe even smaller than that.
Because I always grew up with the sort of idea that if they had weights in the bottom of their boots, otherwise they would float off. That's what
Well,
I
that
always
would
grew up with.
well, that wouldn't make sense, would it? That'd be like thinking the moon's made of cheese.
Yeah, that would be silly. Who would believe that?
You did when you were 8.
I don't know. That's misinformation. That's fake news media propaganda.
It's not. It's not fake news media propaganda. Own it. You thought the moon was made of cheese because you saw Wallace and Gromit.
When I was a little boy, yes, that is. Told to count in confidence, that one. Oh, here you go. To be Jupiter. Oh, we've got some more people over on TikTok now. Hello, guys. Hello, LJ Cubed. Why on the video? Oh, okay. Samson asks, because I did ask people who believe it was fake to ask questions. Samson asks, why on the video was the American flag waving?
It wasn't waving.
Would you be able to
It
enlighten?
it was made with a very special material to look like to make it stand up, so it looks like it's waving. But if you look at the footage, it's not actually waving. It's just moving because they're moving the pole as they're sticking it in the ground.
So ironically, the Americans gave the conspiracy theorists an easy one because I was like, we're gonna make this look like it's waving, and then the conspiracy.
Because otherwise it wouldn't stay up.
Yeah, you'd have to have the astronaut holding it on.
It wouldn't stay up because there's no air to move it around. So it's made of a specific material. It's not made of like cotton like this is.
Yeah, because that would just fall to the.
Although supposedly the that flag doesn't exist anymore. It's probably been destroyed by the sun.
Yeah, it would be bleached now. It would just be like a white flag, which is quite pivotal for America's politics at the moment, just surrendering away. Sort of pulling out of Afghanistan and
Taking
leaving all
lessons
the
from the French.
yeah. Did you know historically the French always surrender actually comes from the CIA, I believe, started it. So I know it was some American government agency, but they started it because the French wouldn't help them. I believe it was with Vietnam or something. I can't remember the exact conflict, but basically the French wouldn't get involved, and so the Americans just really ramped up that the French are a bunch of baguette-eating surrender monkeys. That's not racist for me to say because I'm repeating someone else saying it.
Oh no. I always thought that was from World War II because they put stupid amount of confidence in their forest, didn't they? Not realizing that the Germans had tanks.
I couldn't believe that. Oh yes, we'll only build the wall on this little bit of land and not the rest of the border. Even though in the last war, the way they attacked us was by going through Belgium. They definitely wouldn't do that again.
Never take strategic lessons from the French. Just don't do it.
Well, historically, the French army was the best on the continent until the rise of Prussia. Like, at one point in history, the French had the best military, like, army. We had the best navy. That's how we balanced each other out.
What's that other thing that people say that proves that the moon was fake, the moon landing was fake? Because we have, like, they always say that, because we haven't gone back.
Yes. That's one of the things, but that's easily debunked with money.
Well, it's not so much that. It's like, well, okay, so we haven't gone, humans haven't gone back to the moon, so that means it's fake. Okay, so the next time you go on holiday somewhere, if you don't go back, that immediately discredits the fact that you ever went to begin with.
Oh, here we go. Paul Spencer said it also had a pole in it to give the movement momentum. So the top of the flag had like a pole in it.
Yeah,
apparently, yeah. But I
went on holiday to the Lake District when I was 10 years old. I haven't been back since. Does that mean I ever went? Basically the same logic.
The whole we haven't been back, like, if you're going to use that logic, you could easily continually fake it. Like, if I wanted to.
That's the thing. That's the thing as well. It's like it's not something you could just get up and do. Like you need the amount of planning that takes. You need Congress's approval to give you the money to fund you doing it. That alone takes a lot of convincing. You've got to build all of the equipment to do it. You've got to get all the suits ready. You've got to get the team of people that are going to monitor the damn thing when it happens. You've got to have a good enough reason for going there in the first place, which at the moment there isn't, because there's sweet fuck all up there. And I've lost my train of thought.
Unless they find oil.
Unless they find oil. If they find oil buried beneath the moon, you can guarantee the Americans will have an intergalactic cruise ship orbiting it at all times.
Didn't the Indians claim they found water on the moon?
That's plausible.
So how would there be water? I'm assuming it'd just be like frozen, like on an asteroid.
It would be frozen. It would be frozen. So it's the same way that they've found water on other moons around other planets, but it's usually in a frozen state. So one of the theories of how Earth got its water is it absorbed it from the tail of a comet as it was going past.
Right.
And as comets fly past bodies like moons, which have their own gravity, they have these great big massive tails, which we've all seen. If that tail goes within the gravitational influence of a moon or a planet, it will pull that cloud of debris towards it.
Yeah.
They found tiny patches of water frozen in ice on the north and south poles of Mercury, within craters that will never ever see sunlight.
Pumpkin Bear asks, what are your thoughts on Jupiter being a failed star?
It's not a failed star. That's another one of those things. That's another one of those things that's thrown around so much.
Yes, so I thought it was a failed star. Same with Saturn and Neptune and Uranus.
It's so far off of becoming a star. It's actually funny. Don't get me wrong. It's the heaviest body in the solar system besides the sun. It's heavier than all of the other planets combined. But in order for it to become a star, the temperature in its core needs to be so hot that it physically ignites, that hydrogen and helium physically ignites, which it doesn't. It doesn't even come close to. The most you could do is increase its mass a little bit, which is very difficult because of how big it is. And maybe you might be able to create a brown dwarf, which is a failed star. It's kind of, a brown dwarf is kind of the thin line between a really big gas giant and a very small star. They do produce a bit of light and a bit of heat, but it is so minuscule that you wouldn't even notice it.
Because brown dwarfs can go for like billions and billions of years. Like, not like, because I think the sun, they said, has got 5 billion years left, whereas brown dwarfs can last like a couple hundred.
The sun has 5 billion years. Red dwarfs last trillions of years. Brown dwarfs, they probably don't last as long because they're so small and they don't have as much, because they burn so little. It's more likely that they'll just diffuse entirely before they burn out.
Ian says the looks like the moon needs some freedom in response to the oil comments.
Of course it does.
Let's go for a couple.
Meanwhile, the Chinese are probably like, yeah, the moon needs some communism.
I tell you what, the chat on both TikTok and YouTube today is very active. This is why I'm struggling to keep up with the comments. I'm normally a lot better. We might be getting to the point where my live streams, I'm finally going to have to, if we can get watch hours, and I'll start shifting to super chat priority, and then people say that. We need more watch hours before YouTube lets me get monetized.
I've given up trying to get monetized on YouTube. It's fucking pointless.
History revealed it. They took it away from him for ages because they said he was stealing his own content. Why is the live age restricted on TikTok again? Oh, it's because you're smoking, isn't it?
That's right.
That's right.
Because I'm smoking.
Guys, if you do want the better, the higher quality, head over to YouTube if you're over on TikTok at the moment. Because TikTok will, if it gets live age restricted, it will probably start freezing up soon. Actually, for an age-restricted live stream, I'm probably getting the highest views I've had so far. Over on TikTok. Jupiter gas pool glowed 2 years ago with the same heat. What? Jupiter? Have you heard about Jupiter glowing? I haven't heard of Jupiter glowing at all.
I haven't heard. Oh, it's news to me.
Here we go. It's basically double the amount talking over the radiation we get yearly on Earth every 3 months. It's why 6 astronauts are limited to how long they can be up there, and it's less the amount required to increase the risk of cancer from radiation. To be fair,
say that again, sorry.
So from Paul Spencer, it's basically double the amount we get yearly on Earth every 3 months. It's why 6 astronauts are limited to how long they can be up there. I'm assuming it's not about the International Space Station.
Yes.
It's less the amount required to increase the risk from cancer of cancer from the radiation.
Yes. The radiation is significant, but it won't necessarily kill you just from being up there for a few minutes.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I know a lot of people getting like cataract, or there's a couple like cataracts is oddly high in astronauts. The bits I know about space are all history related, so it's very like I could go in depth on the space race, but I couldn't tell you like the mineral makeup of the moon and stuff like that. Actually, while I've got you here, I know obviously we're meant to be talking about the moon, but we've already gone on a tangent, so we might as well go for it. Which planet do you think is more likely we colonize, Mars or Venus? So I still think Mars.
I'm torn.
Okay, I'm interested.
I'm completely torn these days because I've been reading so much more about Venus than Mars.
Because I know Elon Musk wants to nuke the ice caps, which I don't know if that will work, because then you've irradiated the water supply.
One, you've irradiated the water supply, and 2, it doesn't solve the main problem with Mars is its shit atmosphere.
Yeah, because it would immediately strip away. So you'd need to figure out a way to give Mars a better atmosphere, which is too small to currently hold.
Both planets have one big problem, and that's dealing with the sun. Mars doesn't have much of a what's it called, a magnetic field, and neither does Venus. Strangely enough.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember the reason why Venus doesn't have one. Presumably, it might have just been stripped away over millions of years because it's much closer. But the reason why I'm always torn between the two is because whilst whilst you could land on the surface of Mars and walk about, that is great. But the gravity on Mars is much weaker, whereas on Venus, the gravity is more or less the same. The pressure is more or less the same in the upper atmosphere, I'm speaking. So about 30 miles up, it's the most Earth-like atmosphere we've ever found, besides the Earth. And people often ask, well, how could you stay up in the atmosphere? A bit like how helium works on this planet as a lifting gas. Oxygen acts as a lifting gas on Venus.
Okay.
So you could have loads of essentially blimps, fill them with oxygen and nitrogen, and they will just float. They will float in the atmosphere.
But then you're running the risk of continually, like, because there's a lot of very powerful storms. That's how a lot of the Soviet probes ended up, like, crashing on their way
Only
down.
below the clouds. I'm talking above them.
Oh, right. So you would, like, right above
Right above the clouds.
Sure.
Right above the clouds, the temperature is between 0 and 50 degrees. The pressure is only just slightly lower than what it is like on Earth at sea level. So whereas where the Earth is like 1 bar, Venus is like 0.95.
That would only work in a temporary sense, though, to colonize Venus, because you couldn't have that. Like, I know it's very much like the Cloud City in Star Wars, but that's not going to work. Eventually, you're going to have to figure out a way to cool Venus down and, like, reduce the amount of cloud cover to get down to the surface.
Well, if your long-term plan is to colonize the surface, then yeah, you'd have to find a way to dissipate those clouds so that the heat can escape and change the atmosphere slightly, because the atmosphere is like 99% CO2.
Yeah, you'd need to plant a lot. You'd have loads of plants.
Yeah, climate change on steroids, basically. Trees would absolutely love Venus. They would eat that CO2 up.
I remember.
But if
so go on.
you'd need to find a way to reduce the temperature and reduce the pressure, and a big chunk of that is the atmosphere. The atmosphere is like 3 times thicker than Earth's. It's huge.
So Mars doesn't have enough atmosphere. Venus has too much.
Yeah, Mars has like Mars's atmosphere and pressure is like 100th that of the Earth's. Whereas Venus, I mean, sea level on Venus is something like 90 times stronger in terms of pressure.
So do you think that there possibly, because we haven't been able to get down much of the surface, could there be liquid, obviously not water because it would boil, could there be liquid on the surface of Venus?
No, it's too hot.
So not even like Mercury. So I know there's some Mercury seas and stuff.
Everywhere. Mercury doesn't have an atmosphere, so if it absorbed something coming from a comet, then that's going to stay there. It's nowhere to go. But Venus is 500 degrees all over the surface, day and night, north and south.
No matter what.
No matter what.
Ian just said we should fire Greta Thunberg in a missile towards Venus.
For legal reasons, I'm going to have to disavow that.
Yeah, for legal reasons, we should do that in Minecraft. The comment section's unhinged today. We've got loads of people being scientific in it. Sorry, go on.
One theory they have about maybe being able to reduce the temperature on Venus is find a way to block out the sun. Like build it.
Yeah.
One thing
it's like a Dyson sphere type thing. Like a reverse Dyson sphere.
Some kind of Dyson sphere or some kind of orbital mirror, something to reflect. It would have to be a mega structure, but it's just something to reflect the light coming from the sun away from the surface to cool it down.
So at that point, you're starting to get into some like Star Trek, Star Wars technology.
In theory, it could be possible.
Yeah, but in theory, a lot of the Star Wars stuff is possible.
But
like in theory, lightsabers are possible.
You would just need a lot of resources. You need to do a lot of asteroid mining.
Yeah. Pumpkin Pez says Pluto is the goth black sheep planet. Is talking about the comic aloud. I don't understand that one. I'm filtering through. If I'm ignoring your comments, I've had too many. Sorry, go on.
I used to say that Pluto. I used to say to people to be more like Pluto. Whereas all the other planets are just orbiting like this, and Pluto's going like this. Be like Pluto. Pluto doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah. All the other planets are going, oh no, we're going to get conscripted, and Pluto's just like, woohoo, war crimes.
See you later, bitches. I'm having the time of my life.
Yeah. I can't get
hi,
drafted.
I've just overtaken you.
I can't get drafted. I've got mental health issues.
Oh, hi,
Literally
Neptune.
me.
I've just overtaken you.
Literally me. What's that? You've been to therapy? We can't. Actually, no. It depends how desperate they got. You know, if they fought all four of the Russian tanks. Have you seen the last Russian parade where it's just one World War II tank? Because
Seriously?
Yeah, because they had to use every single other tank on the back. There's I don't know how true it is because, you know, propaganda, but apparently they're using World War II tanks in Ukraine because they're getting absolute.
I can believe that.
Crashed.
If you want an accurate depiction of how a nation is doing during a war, you look at their propaganda. You look at what they do for their military parades. And Russia does a military parade every year for like the end of World War II. So if you want an idea of how Russia's doing, that's your best shot.
Look at their. It's like in Game of Thrones when they go to show Cersei the White Walker, and then they notice that only 2 of Daenerys' dragons are out, and then they all go, "Oh, like she's obviously holding one back." And Cersei very quickly realizes, no, that was a show of power. If she's only showing off 2 dragons, that means something's happened to the 3rd one.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're showing off and you're not showing your full might, then you're not probably showing off.
You know, I used to watch Russian military parades a lot because I thought they were quite cool. And they would have so much stuff. They would have dozens of battalions of soldiers marching across Red Square, and then they pull out hundreds and hundreds of tanks and then rocket launchers. They'd usually bring a giant, the biggest warhead you've ever seen on wheels. You'd bring hundreds of them down, and now they just don't bring any of them out because they've probably been sent to the front lines.
Or they're already destroyed on the front line.
Or they're already destroyed.
Thank you, Meridan, for showing the live over on TikTok. Mr. Luton, my mod, has turned up. And he has commented, could the atmospheric... Oh, no, hang on. Wrong thing. I've clicked on the wrong thing. Hang on. There you go. Could the atmospheric... I can't read atmospheric... That out. No, I can't read that out.
I want to know what he said.
Could the atmospheric pressure of Mars impact my joking ability?
Oh, get over yourself, you fanny.
And then he said, send Lizzo, she'll reflect the light in response to Q colonising Finland.
Silly Billy.
Somebody clip that, please. Oh, no.
You silly sausage.
I actually thought the first part was it seemed like such a genuine question. Oh. Get the quesos back up. Right, anyways, looking back at the YouTube comments. Okay, this is talking about Pluto, I believe. It's actually a planetoid, bigger than most of the things around it, but not large enough to be a full planet. The Kuiper Belt is just beyond it. Yeah. Most of those things he's mentioned are moons of Jupiter. He's got the location of the Kuiper Belt entirely wrong.
What are you talking about?
This is earlier when we was talking about Pluto and the Kuiper Belt. He's saying that you've put Kuiper Belt in the wrong spot.
Sedna isn't in the Sedna isn't a moon of Jupiter. Neither's Eris.
Yeah, I was going to say I used to be really fascinated with Jupiter's moons because
Jupiter. When I was talking about Ceres and the asteroid belt, those were between Mars and Jupiter. So Ceres, Eros, Juno, Vesta, those are in orbit between Mars and Jupiter. Those are the asteroids. Sedna, Eris, and Pluto are in the Kuiper Belt.
Fair enough.
Jupiter's moons are Io, Europa, Callisto, and Ganymede, plus a bunch of other small shitty ones that I can't remember the names of.
Pink Fun Poet, in response to your you speaking about life on other planets, I mean, extremophiles exist. We know there could be bacteria chilling in the core of Mars. I'm very, very certain we found fossilized bacteria on Mars. I could have been a fake news, but I remember being about 13, 14, and that was on the news somewhere. But then again, it wouldn't be the first time the BBC has lied. So,
What are you saying?
I mean, in Minecraft,
What are you
guys,
saying?
I would
Are you
never say
saying?
anything bad about our TV overlords. Also, did you know it's not illegal to get rid of your TV license? You just don't watch live TV. Also, did you know statistically we all watch Netflix more than live TV, so it's not necessary to have a TV license. Completely random. Anyways, moving on.
Yeah, I'm sure it's completely random. Completely random.
Remember, kids, tax evasion isn't a crime; it's a civic service. Oh, this is getting age restricted. Actually, no. The only person I've had age restrict my live streams is Trip, and Trip he was going. He managed to get YouTube and TikTok at the same time. They both flashed up with a warning. Was like, your live stream has been age restricted.
Getting a little bit spicy, are you, Trip?
Yeah. I love Trip. The conversations with Trip is there's a reason that he doesn't go live on TikTok on his own. And
I
there's a
wonder
reason,
why.
yeah, because he's a bit bad. I think he's nearly been banned before. That's correct. Also, a lower velocity to escape. Velocity to escape. In theory, you could actually throw something off the moon entirely. Yeah, because isn't there like, so if you shot yourself, if you shot a rifle, couldn't like the bullet go round the moon and then hit you in the back or something?
I'm not so sure about that.
I saw it on a. This is gonna sound. This is where I go from sounding smart with history and mythology to sounding really dumb. But I saw it on a TV program.
It might be possible. I'm not 100% sure, but the moon's gravity is so weak, it might leave the moon entirely.
Yeah, that's what I think. That's what Paul Spencer's saying.
There'll be no air resistance or anything to slow it down either.
Yeah. The flag will move because it's got because it's being moved. Newton's first law. I've seen you quote Newton a couple times. P-Funk. I've seen you quote Newton a couple times. Ice was found many years.
Stuff.
Yeah. Ice was found many years ago on the moon. Yeah, that was by the Indians. You know, the nation that still gets foreign aid, even though it can land stuff on the moon.
Even though it has its own bloody space program, make it make sense.
Maybe like help your own people before you send stuff to space, and that's to all civilized nations.
Racist.
No, I didn't. I said to America. I said to all civilized nations, as in to America as well.
You're trying to take away foreign aid.
I didn't. No, stop putting words in my mouth. Cancel.
Racist. I completely agree. Why are we sending money to India when they have their own bloody space program?
Exactly. There's a lot of important minerals that we need on the moon. It will serve as a really great setting off resource gathering point for mineral mining of asteroids.
It's almost like foreign aid. It's almost like foreign aid isn't actually for foreign. It's for bribe.
Before we get Hillary Clinton, let's go back to the space stuff. So, Paul Spencer's talking about there's a lot of minerals on the moon that we all need. Do you think
that's true?
But I think that again, it will be private companies that set that up. Like, it will be like Elon and Jeff Bezos setting up moon bases where you get a contract to go out and mine on the moon.
Well, there's that conspiracy theory going around that the reason why Bezos and Musk are having like a private space race is because they want to get to that one asteroid that's covered in gold.
I don't think gold's going to be like falling back on my knowledge, so I don't sound like a total unintelligent person. I had to watch myself realise I'm not in a private VC then. I don't think gold's going to be.
I don't believe it at all because it would completely. If humanity got a hold of that asteroid, then the price of gold would just plummet.
Yeah, that's the one thing. Like looking at stock markets, but also like culturally, historically, when the Incas and the Spanish met, one of the funniest exchanges was the Spanish like, "Why is everything gold?" And the Incas were like, "Oh yeah, that's everywhere. We just have it. It's in our stuff." And then the Spanish were like, "What's this sweet food?" And then the Incas got really mad. Was like, "Don't touch our chocolate, or our cocoa beans." Like that's what they was protective of.
That's a nice golden temple you've got there. It'd be a shame if someone seized it.
Yeah, because the Incas, there's actually a very famous knowledge. This particular, I can't remember if it was Aztec or Incan or it might have been Mayan. I really apologise for how racist that sounds because I've confused three very different cultural groups.
Told you he's racist.
You need to stop saying that. I'm going to end up getting me cancelled. Twitter will have a field day with it.
I'm just pulling your leg.
I know you're pulling my leg, but there's some person with pink hair on Twitter currently going, "He's what? I saw a 30-second out of context clip on Twitter. He must be." But no, it's like the Spanish come in. They're gonna kill him, and they start looking through the gold. And he goes, "Okay." He can't quite talk to him, and this particular prince, he puts his hand up there and he points to the gold. And he says, "I'll fill this room with gold for you as long as you spare my people." And then they forced him to convert to Catholicism and like garroted him. I can't remember his name, and I really do apologise. It's a random tidbit. It's actually, thanks to the Spanish, it's really hard to get a hold of Central American and South American history because they burnt a lot of it. Same as what Stalin did in Mongolia. It's one of the aside from all the horrors Stalin did, it's one of the biggest things I hate about Stalin is the fact that he destroyed like 60% of Mongolian history. That's my.
Did he really?
Yeah, that's why. So when I was the Mongolian version of the Bigfoot is called and slash Russian is called the Almas. A lot of the information on the Almas was recorded by Buddhist monks. And because Stalin was a communist and hated religion, he burnt all of the Buddhist monks' texts on the Almas. So, like, a lot of what it actually was, like, if it was a spiritual thing, if it actually was a Bigfoot type thing, if it was another species of human, we don't know, because Stalin burnt it all because more religion bad.
What a bastard.
Yeah. And that's one of the nicest things Stalin did, guys. And that's who communists have on their shirts currently. Sorry.
Stalin, you really are a virgin.
He's really well. From some of the stories, he definitely wasn't. He just didn't understand what consent meant. Allegedly, I'm not saying anything definite before someone gets mad at me going, "That's not true." Anyway,
Stalin full. Google it.
Oh no. See, this is the issue. Whenever I view a trip on, I'll say something and I'll go allegedly, and then you guys go, "No, it's not. It's real." It's like,
I didn't. Hang on. I didn't say it was real. I just said Google it.
That's a fair point. Okay.
I didn't say whether I believed it or not. I just said Google it. It might be real. It might not be. I'm not a historic scholar.
To be fair, I always say to people, whenever I'm talking about history, make sure you like research your side, because I'm not an academic, so I may be, that I'm not going to be 100% correct all the time. I have been caught out a couple of times, and I'll admit it in the next video, and I'll be like, "Yeah, I got this wrong."
You told me you had a master's degree in history. I'm joking, no, you didn't.
My degree is in film and television. That's why that's why the only bit I can debunk on the moon landing is to do with the lighting and the film.
Well, you talk about history a lot. What are your qualifications? Well, I have a degree in media.
It's because I'm just passionate about history. Speaking of history,
seems completely relevant to me. Yeah, master's degree in media studies. Why not?
Speaking of history, Oswald Mosley blamed the British for World War II. He said they were the aggressors. Oswald Mosley was a prick, so I don't care what he said.
Grow up, Oswald.
Yeah. Unsurprisingly, that was from the King. Everyone's favourite commenter. Everyone's favourite commenter. Here we go. Oh, hang on, I've lost a comment. Fun fact, Nara used to sell its passports to foreigners for money when its phosphates reserves run out. I'm assuming that's to do with the minerals comment. And then we have Fire Greta. All the HO4 in the atmosphere is hellish. Worst acid rain vapor ever. I think that's talking about colonizing Venus again.
Yes.
I'm actually an arborist. The plants needing exclusively CO2 thing is a total myth. In fact, at night they absorb almost as much oxygen as CO2 in the daytime. It's one of the most common myths. That's interesting. So so with that information, how would we manage to get the CO2 level down in
it's not a myth. People say it's a myth, but all you need to do is look at this overall size of plants and trees previously, in previous eras of the Earth's history, and you'll see that they were much bigger than they are today because the CO2 levels were much higher. That's one of the things.
But the oxygen levels were a lot higher then as well.
They were a lot higher
because like
they both levels were through the roof back in the dinosaurs era for a start.
It was further back than that because so if you look into the carbon, here we go. Finally, this is the part of the episode where I can jump in properly. In the Carboniferous period, we had giant insects.
Yes,
like massive dragonflies that would like happily curl around your head. Centipedes.
You had mega centipedes as well. Yeah, it was really.
The spiders were a myth. The Mesophile spider is a myth, to my knowledge. But yeah, so like at that point in history, you had like the oxygen was so large as well. So I can see it kind of playing into what Paul's saying in the comments is that there would be just as much oxygen as there would be CO2 because both were very high.
I'm also not suggesting you drop a bunch of trees and plants down onto Venus because they won't survive anyway.
Yeah, there wouldn't be any water.
Exactly.
over on TikTok, Ameridan says, "Is the moon made out of cheese?" No.
Ask you, Daddy. He's a scholar in that.
No, the moon is not made out of cheese. And then the other comment I've got is hail history.
Well, that's suspicious.
I've accidentally started a cult. Trip has come into the comments, me talking about some of the stuff he said in the video that got us age restricted, and his response is exactly what I would expect Trip to say: is look, those mermaids aren't going to knock themselves up.
I don't get it. Last weekend I was having a pleasant discussion with a psychologist about autism, and that instantly got age restricted. Like, what's that about, huh?
Because it's I'll tell you that off camera because we'll get in trouble if I talk about that. That's one of the things I know I can't talk about, especially about being live on TikTok as well. It's
basically
yeah. Well, no, I know it's just because the scrubbers.
Is it because TikTok thinks that it isn't real?
The algorithmic scrubbers will go through both live streams and on less so on YouTube, but more so. Yeah, I'll tell you when we VC later. I wish with all my heart, free will. I don't understand what you're saying, my guy. Elon wants. Yes, we've been over. Elon wants to nuke Mars. To be fair, King, the idea is to nuke the poles of Mars to vaporize the water and the ice to form basic atmosphere and kickstart the water cycle, then plant a bunch of high oxygen producing plants. Okay, that makes sense. If Elon's a bit more, I mean, Elon is quite extravagant.
He's also a bit optimistic.
Yeah,
he's very ambitious.
See, I think he's an optimistic nihilist because he's very anti the idea of an afterlife, but he's also optimistic about everything else, which kind of like clashes for me.
Yeah, but that's just because you've got a fear of death.
True. I don't think you can be optimistic if you think that we just go kaput after dying. I can't see that being an optimistic outlook on life. Whereas Elon, like,
no, you could be optimistic and about your life. You can. Just because someone's an optimist, it doesn't mean that they're thinking about death.
Yeah, but that's still optimistic.
Like death is a long way away.
But
me and you, we're in our 20s. Death is at least 60 years away.
Yeah,
in my case, it's 20. In my case, it's 20 years away. But still.
Yeah, if you got to stop smoking like a chimney. I've lost my entire train of thought, but no, there we go. See, we've gone from debunking the moon landing to philosophy. But I would argue that is a form of optimistic nihilism, because nihilism's core is nothing matters. So if you're looking optimistically, then you're looking at the core of we die and nothing matters, but you're looking at it and going, but we can do this instead. Like, that's what I would argue. But also, as someone, a former nihilist, I would argue that nihilism is probably one of my more dangerous philosophies. This is an entire different live stream. We'll have to dedicate specifically to philosophical arguments. I and I'm not saying anything, but I may or may not be able to set that up because I do know some philosophical looking people. The Spoon comments. I really wish you hadn't brought up that I used the Wallace and Gromit thing. Spoon comments. I mean, of course the moon is real. That's where cheese comes from. Thank you, guys. You know, I'm going to see loads of clips of this now, aren't I? It's like History Daddy thing.
It's your own fault, mate. It's your own fault for being such an idiot when you were 8.
You must have had a weird, like, belief when you were younger.
The only weird belief that I ever had as a kid, and I've been open about this, so I don't care if it gets clipped, is that when I was about, up until I was about 9 years old, if there was a snow day, if it was snowing outside, and I had school the next day, I would immediately run out the house and around the house and make sure all the windows and doors are shut so no heat gets out and disrupts the weather.
That's brilliant. Wait, so you was convinced that the heat in your house would melt the snow and you would have to go
No, it wouldn't melt the snow, but it could disrupt the weather.
So it would disrupt the weather and stop the snow, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. That's how high I was on the autism spectrum at that age. I took the whole global warming thing way too seriously.
Yeah, I was adamantly. That's what when I was young. Someone's gonna.
Like I say, I don't care if that gets clipped. I already did a video about it.
This is the most cursed TikTok comment I've ever read. So, Count's girlfriend is known as the Countess. So, wouldn't that mean that if History Daddy gets a girlfriend, she'll be called History Mummy? And that is a logical conclusion. But also, I don't know. Imagine that on a first date. So, if you date me and I make this public, you're gonna have to know and be known as History Mummy. And
that's gonna be so. If I ever get wind that you're out on a date and it's going really well, I'm gonna try and find you. I'm gonna say, "Hi, History Daddy. Is this History Mummy?" It's make it really awkward for you.
No, if you be like, "History Daddy, is this my new History Mummy?" You just like.
No, I want to do that. That's kind of sus. That's kind of sus.
I was hoping I could convince you, then it'd be less embarrassing for me. How many?
I don't have mummy issues. I'm sorry to disappoint you.
I didn't say nuking the poles of work, just a plan that he suggested. Fair enough. I apologise for that's how I read it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone actually believes he's going to do that.
Yeah.
First off, Elon would have to get a hold of a nuclear weapon. Yeah, the United States government's just going to sell him a nuclear weapon.
I mean, if inflation gets bad enough, it wouldn't surprise me if they get absolutely desperate.
I mean, Joe Biden would. Let's be honest.
Actually, if he's going to buy it from anywhere, it'd be like Russia or something.
That's true. Actually, I think the Russians would actually buy it.
Yeah, Russia would actually sell a nuke. The Chinese can't because all of their nukes are apparently filled with water. Musk isn't a nihilist. He wants to leave a lasting legacy of a large family to carry on his work. Exactly, optimistic nihilism. Pardon me, optimistic nihilism. Yeah, like I understand that, but I'm arguing from a philosophical standpoint that is optimistic nihilism. Because you're saying nothing matters on a single personal level because one day you will die and all that's left behind is your legacy, which is optimistic nihilism. My opinion is that we are no more important than single-celled organisms and that when we die, that's it, we're done. So we should spend our time learning, having fun while we're here. I take a different approach. Cat would argue that my fear of death has spurned this, but I have recently started turning a lot more to religion. Which Cat would definitely argue my fear of death is probably a reason for that.
I'm trying to make the most of the time that I have, but I also want to leave behind a legacy because I think it's all well and good sitting there thinking that you've got to have fun and just live your best life, but you kind of want to leave behind some kind of legacy because I mean, it would be nice if I was still if at least there was something where someone could look up my name and they'd still be able to find me like 100 years later, like for whatever reason. It doesn't need to be anything specific.
Energy can't be created or destroyed, and I think that I can't see our consciousness stopping. So whether it is we go to heaven, whether it is we like the Egyptians, it's as long as people think of you. I think that your consciousness must continue in some format because
I've never
energy.
told you my theory.
Uh, I know the one where we rot in the ground and you're conscious the entire time, which is basically the plot of I think one of Evil Dead films, like where the
Well,
zombies can feel themselves
it's
rotting.
a bit more. It's a bit more than that. But it's purely based on the fact that as you age, your body gets weaker and it can't do as much as it used to. It's almost like it's kind of like driving a car.
Yeah.
Whereas where your body's the car, your consciousness is the driver. You can only drive that car for as good as long as the parts are working. And as it ages, those parts get worse and worse and worse. And eventually it gets to a point where it doesn't work at all. But the consciousness is still there. Whether it's aware of what's going on or not, entirely different matter. But it just can't control it anymore. But then that opens up a can of worms of what happens when someone gets blown up or something.
But also, yeah, when you're completely decomposed, then where's the consciousness being stored? At that point, you'd have to either assume it's released or
It probably releases, or it breaks down, or it ceases to exist, or it gets broken
again,
apart.
energy cannot be created or destroyed. So if the fact that you have a conscious experience, which is created by energy,
energy cannot be created and destroyed. But look at how much. I can't believe I'm using this as an example. Look at Hiroshima. When Hiroshima was detonated, and the amount of things that were completely turned to ash and dust. Okay, energy can't be created or destroyed. But
yeah, it was turned to ash and dust, but it was converted into a different format. So what I'm arguing is, even if you're not looking at sort of like the heaven idea or the Alex Jones, there's multiple dimensions and the praying mantis aliens and the machine elves, like the So if you, I just seen my favourite comment of the night from Steve Dobbs. Colin down the pub convinced me that the moon is a hollow artificial structure. It seems legit.
Colin down the pub sounds like a right laugh to have a drink with.
That is actually, I've seen people.
Of course, it's
do
Colin.
Conspiracy. It is always a Colin or a Cletus.
Please.
I mean, you never know. They might. Oh, here you go. You never know. They might just do it because they think that they'll make enough money from taxing Musk, gathering resources in space. Firstly, taxation is theft. Secondly,
oh yeah, the US Congress will definitely create a Mars tax.
Yeah, they'll 100%. The second Bezos or Musk actually managed to get onto Mars or the moon, which is I think Bezos is aiming for the moon, whereas Musk is aiming more for Mars.
Yeah, he is.
I think Bezos is making the better business decision because obviously once he gets to the moon, he can mine all the cheese. But yeah, that reminds me of one of my favorite SCP stories where the moon is just an egg, like there's a massive alien in it.
So you think the moon is made of cheese? So is it layers? So one's
Wensleydale, one's cheddar.
So one layer is just a big thin lump of parmesan. You drill through that, you get to the cheddar.
No, I thought it was all Wensleydale. When I was a kid, I thought it was all Wensleydale because Wallace and Gromit only ate Wensleydale cheese, and so they went to the moon to get Wensleydale cheese. So I assumed that the moon was made of exclusively Wensleydale cheese.
Okay, well, all I can say to that is thank God is that I will never be going to the moon anytime soon because I'm lactose intolerant.
Yeah. Imagine going to the moon. One small step for man. I need the toilet.
Now that you mention that, the moon's made of cheese. How long have people thought that? Is that just since Wallace and Gromit, or has it been for hundreds of years?
That was like an old wives' tale long before Wallace and Gromit because they didn't invent the idea.
Because I'm only thinking because before the age of telescopes and binoculars, how the hell would you have known? Because you can't really make out any surface features on the moon. So you wouldn't have been able to see the craters that look suspiciously like cheese holes. So I'm thinking, how far does that go back? Did some twat in a desert somewhere just make that up? Or was it based on looking through telescopes and shit?
I wonder, because you get a lot of sun cults. How come there's not as many moon cults? Like, if you look, like the Egyptians had it, the Romans had a sun cult. I think there was a couple of Asian nations that had a sun cult. But I've never heard of there probably is one, but I've never heard of a moon cult.
I mean, there's people that worship. There were old religions that used to worship the moon, wasn't there?
Yeah, but they're not as big as like the sun cult is, and I wonder why that is. Maybe it's because it's the dark and everyone was scared of being eaten by wolves. Um, the Count will become a gas giant himself.
Excuse me.
According to Ian, you're going to become a gas giant. So, I think this is after you die. He's predicting you die and become a gas giant. But you've often said you would be happy if the afterlife was just your consciousness goes off and explores the universe.
I would be happy with that. I'd be very, very depressed if I'm just alone forever. No, I wouldn't be able to interact with anyone else, even people that are even other consciousnesses that don't exist anymore. But I wouldn't mind being able to explore the universe forever.
Also, Paul Spencer also says we rot and energy is conserved in that way, which makes sense. Yeah, on a biological scale, as I'm getting older, I will agree with Count. It is very easily possibly a coping mechanism for my. I'm not very open. I have thought about doing a full video on it, just like to help people with thanatophobia. I have thought about doing it a lot. There is a good chance that my thanatophobia is like pushing me back towards religion, but it's not a fun thing.
100% it is.
I knew you was gonna say that, but
and you've got to be wary of that because there's going to be religious fanatics that are going to take advantage of that.
Yeah, one day I'm going to message you and I'm going to like, I believe in the flying spaghetti monster cow.
Is this because you're afraid of death?
Yeah.
Grow up, you sissy. You're a long way off from worrying about being dead.
Yeah, it's just at one point I'm like 80 and I start like kidnapping children to use their organs to stay younger and like turn into.
Excuse me, what?
Poor Elizabeth Bathory. I was like the rich people joke. You know how they always say they bathe in baby's blood. I don't believe that. Before people accuse me of being some QAnon person, I don't believe the rich people bathe in baby's blood. Just the old rich ones. I've got to be careful with the jokes now. Actually, to be fair, I've been more and more open with my jokes, and I've got more views for it. Aardman took the idea from somewhere else. I actually live down the road from their studios. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Trip says, it's a Smoke Bit Fairy Tales. Trip, by the way, his 10th book is out. You should go and buy it. If you want to actually see the books for free, you can get them on YouTube as audio books, and they're on Spotify. So, I think Trip gets paid for the Spotify views. I'm not sure about YouTube. And it's on Audible if you prefer audiobooks. And I don't know if I can announce that yet. Never mind. My brain nearly said something. I don't know if I can announce it.
If you have, you just bloody spoiled it.
I haven't spoiled anything, don't worry. I stopped myself. Oh, here we go. The moon has been associated for millennia with women, even in Roman times. Young girls were lunar crescent pendants to protect them, and obviously periods aligned with the lunar cycle, so that was where it came from. That is incredibly interesting. Thank you. That is Historical Han over on the TikTok side commenting that. And it also highlights my complete lack of knowledge in certain areas of history. Anyways, as Trip was saying, the moon cheese is a Western thing. In the East, there's a rabbit up there pounding rice paste. I don't know how accurate that is for the East. Trip actually has a surprising knowledge of Asian history. As I discovered on the live stream the other day, not all of that is savoury for YouTube. I mean, lactose tolerance. If you eat cheese, you'll become a gas giant. I see where he's going because lactose tolerance.
Yes.
I get it now. The sun makes plants grow. The sun makes plants grow where the moon worshippers right there in the UK. Stonehenge is aligned with the lunar solstices. I'm being really shown up for my moon cult comment there, aren't I? See, but also this is what I always say: when I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I'll own up for it. So I was wrong about the moon cult thing. It's my own, perhaps my own focus on sun cults. For this year, you're only young to be worrying about death. I'm 26.
That's what I'm saying. What are you? 25?
26.
You're 26. Oh, get over yourself.
Right.
I'm gonna be 29 this year.
Okay, so we've debunked the moon. Do you want to have any closing? Because we've been going for an hour and a half now. Do you want to have any closing statements on the moon being fake? We spoke about the moon being fake for about 20 minutes.
I don't really have. I genuinely think that the conspiracies like the moon landing being fake and space not being real. I think these are just. I think some of these are just
Wait, space not being
conspiracies.
real?
I think they're egged on by elites to discredit actual conspiracy theories that might have a little bit of clout.
Historically, the term tinfoil hat and conspiracy theorist was actually brought up by the CIA long ago. And there is also there is some limited evidence to show that the anti-vax movement that RFK and notable people like Kim are part of was started by the CIA to discredit other conspiracy theories.
That's generally what I think about some conspiracy theories, because I think some of them do have a little bit of clout. Some of them could be onto something.
What do you feel about the hollow? I'm not going to go flat Earth because that's completely.
Excuse
what do you
me?
Feel about? I'm not. Gonna, what do you feel about the hollow Earth conspiracy?
I am not going to lie. I genuinely thought you were going to say something else when you said holler.
What did you think I was? Can you say it on a live stream? What did you think I was going to say?
Well, let's just say it ends with caused.
No, I was going to just casually. What do you think of the Holocaust? Holocaust Memorial Day was yesterday. I put a post up for that. So it'd be very badly timed. Be very badly timed.
Right. So what was the question?
What do you think of the Hollow Earth hypothesis? We'll say.
I haven't really followed it, so I don't know anything about their beliefs.
So basically, they believe. Have you ever seen Journey to the Center of the Earth?
No.
Okay, so they believe that the core is like floating in the middle of the Earth, and then there's like the dinosaurs are all in the center of the Earth, and basically, you know how we are outwards facing the sun and the moon. They believe that under the crust there is another civilized like world basically, but facing inwards on the core, and the core just floats perfectly and acts as a sun. We've lost.
That's
there it goes back now. There you go. I lost you for a second. You froze.
I think some people have been watching Ice Age 3 a little bit too much.
Yeah, Ice Age 3 is another one. Yeah, but they used the Hollow Earth theory in Ice Age 3. Yeah.
My question to that is, well, how do you explain volcanic chasms? Like lava chasms.
I think they would probably say that there's actually a lot of like crust between the inner world and our world. I can see where it comes. I can see if you believe in like Celtic paganism, where you're looking at the Celtic otherworld and stuff. That would be a scientific way of looking around it. The only issue with that is if you look at the proper Celtic myths, then the Celtic otherworld is another world. It's outside of this dimension. But yeah, that's funny. To finish off, Ian says, a conspiracy theorist. You mean a spoiler alertist?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Depends on the conspiracy. Obviously, flat Earth and the moon landing being fake. Yeah. Anyways, before we go on for another hour, closing arguments on the moon landing being faked. What do you think the point of it would be? And is it possible that the moon landing conspiracy is just Russian misinformation propaganda?
I think it might also just be religious nuts trying to cling on to their religion.
I mean,
I've often said that if we discover an extraterrestrial civilization, that will send some of the more hardline religious areas of the world into an absolute meltdown.
There's nothing in Christianity or Buddhism that directly goes against the idea of extraterrestrial life. There is one religion that I'm not going to say because I'm not going to. There's one religion that would collapse in an instant if extraterrestrial life was discovered. But I believe, Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism. I'm not sure about Hinduism. I'd have to look into it. But most of those religions, actually, it would support the Norse pagans. The Norse pagans would be proven because of their idea of different realms. The Norse pagans would probably be loving life.
Norse paganism will suddenly have an increase in membership.
Yeah, that and Buddhism, because Buddhism believes in other worlds and stuff as well. But yeah, I think Paul Spencer, to finish off, says genuinely.
Hang on a second. Christianity and Judaism don't dispute the possibility of life elsewhere.
Yeah, I was talking to a couple of Christian people about this the other day. The Pope actually about 10, 15 years ago now actually said that extraterrestrial life doesn't dispute Christianity. The
Yeah,
Pope
but that's the
said that.
Pope.
Yeah, but the Pope is like the head of Catholicism, so whatever
I
he
don't give a
says.
shit who he is.
I'm saying that Catholics follow what he says, so if he says that it doesn't conflict, then other Catholics wouldn't go into. Rastafarians, I don't know what Rastafarians believe enough to actually comment on if they would collapse in the advent of extraterrestrial life.
Not to be that guy, but I'm afraid I'm going to need proof.
What on the Catholic stuff? I will, I will seek that for you. But to my knowledge, that it's the same as the book of. If you look at unless they're a devout creationist, then they would collapse in on themselves because creationists obviously rely very much on the Garden of Eden. But there's actually
Yes.
nothing in the Bible that explicitly says that Earth is the only planet where life could be. The Rastafarians would go into apoplexy. I need to actually look it. Wait, let me very quickly look up what Rastafarians like, because all I know is that Bob Marley was a Rastafarian, and that's about it. Rastafari is a religious and political movement that began in Jamaica in the early 1930s and was adopted by many groups around the globe. It combines Protestant Christianity, mysticism, and Yeah, no, that's collapsing within seconds. If aliens are proving, that's collapsing within seconds. Yeah. Mystics, depends. The Sami people would probably be fine. A lot of the Native American religions would be fine. Most of the South American pagan religions would be fine because a lot of them rely on sky people and stuff like that. There is a cult in Africa that I really wish I could remember the name of, where they directly believe that so their gods come from Alpha Centauri. I could be completely talking out my arse, and I Wendigoon was talking about them. Oh, I was watching a Wendigoon video and he was talking about them. But to my knowledge, they actually believe that their gods come from the stars. And so their religion, again, would be what... There are multiple religions where the gods... Not to get ancient aliens, by the way. The ancient national theory is also complete. It's looking at religion and going, oh, yes, this makes sense if Star Wars. That's the ancient national theory. But yeah, to finish off, because we've been going for about an hour and a half now. So obviously, the moon landing is real. We know it is because we're an hour and a half into this. We debunked it within the first 20 minutes, ran out of arguments, and started talking about space and philosophy. So, what are you? Sorry. Emperor Haile Selassie actually lived in my hometown during his exile. That's pretty cool. The Dogon tribe. That's it. The Dogon tribe. Your least favorite YouTube channel puts a Jew, as in DEW. I don't know if you were talking about Jews or Jew as in. I'm assuming you're talking about Jew as in the plant, but I don't know. I have so many coded dog whistle comments in my live streams now. I get suspicious whenever I see anything. There used to be a guy who'd come into the live streams as Oswald Mosley, and was like, I could have saved Britain. And I had to
I used to have people like that.
I actually had to get Pumpkin Bear, the mod to actually ban him. It's the only time I've ever had to ban. I'm a free speech absolutist, but when you're, if you're gonna put crazy conspiracy theories, do it in another live stream because I don't want to get banned by YouTube. Yeah, it's the only time I've had to ban someone.
I could have saved Britain. Yeah, of course you could, Oswald.
Yeah.
Of course you could.
Of course you could. How was the brick to the mouth? Like, how was that? How was that brick to the mouth? The only time I'll ever accept a comment is the time he smacked Oswald Mosley in the mouth with a brick. I do want to do a video on Oswald Mosley just purely so I can just pause on that. You know the picture when he's on the floor and there's one guy ready with a brick and there's a brick next to his head for his
The thing that gets me about Oswald Mosley fans is the only reason half of them even know who Oswald Mosley was because of Peaky fucking Blinders.
And Peaky Blinders, he's like portrayed as an absolute tit.
Exactly. It's incredibly stupid.
But like
I genuinely don't understand it. I do not. It must just be this weird thing that some teenagers have where they just have to.
Oh, all right-wing propaganda is now like done by 12-year-olds with a Telegram account in Russia.
Yeah.
But anyways, to finish off, what have you got coming up and where can people find you?
You can find me on TikTok as Count Daedalus, Instagram, same name. I do have a YouTube channel where I just post everything that I upload on TikTok onto there. So yeah, I don't really have anything coming up. I'm just taking it easy at the moment.
Yeah, that's why I'm focusing more on real world career
Just
stuff. So
just trying to diffuse the tension that people seem to have about World War Three.
Yeah, we're not getting drafted, guys. It's not
Which
happening.
kind of makes me sad, the whole situation, because it's made me realise, geez, if there was a world war and the country was genuinely in danger, people would just sit by and do nothing.
Steve says Mosley was a simp. Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was a simp.
He was literally
He
simping
was.
for Hitler. Well, that's me banned off TikTok now. You said Hitler. Did I ever
The
tell
thing
you?
is, his name isn't actually banned. You can actually say his name on TikTok.
I've been banned for saying Hitler's name on TikTok before.
I've said it a few times, and I'm sweet.
It's probably because that they know you've got such a aggressive following that they would have complaints inundating them. But I remember the last time you got banned, and all I saw was videos of people posting get him back. Same thing with History Revealed. They keep banning History Revealed because I'm not going to say what they posted History Revealed because then I'll get in trouble. You know why they banned History Revealed last time? He's making videos supporting a certain nation in a certain conflict we're not going to talk about because I don't want to answer questions on it.
Yeah, I don't.
But yeah, Oswald Mosley was a simp. Also, while we're here to give you to go on, I know I go on about it a lot, but I do like to help Trip out. Make sure you go and get his 10th book in the Smoke Pit Fairy Tale series, and you can listen to it for free as an audiobook on both YouTube and on Spotify. And if you want to get into the books that way, if you prefer audiobooks, if you just want to understand, get a grasp of the story, it is written through the lens of a former US Marine, so it is you do need to be very accepting of darker humour, shall we say, and very sexually graphic scenes.
No surprise there.
If you've watched any of my live streams with Trip, you know you get how Trip's entire vibe. You know, one of my favourite guests. But yes, I want to thank you all for watching. Thank you, Count Daedalus, for joining me once again on this.
You're very
stream.
welcome. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, I know we went off the rails from debunking the moon landing, but to be fair, it was that easy to debunk that we debunked it in 20 minutes and then just went on about whatever we wanted.
Well, one of my favourite pastimes, admittedly, is there's this TikTok channel. I think her name's Maria or something. She occasionally does live streams where she's talking about the moon landing or flat Earth and things like that.
Yeah.
One of my favourite things is just to jump in there and just start talking to people and arguing with them, listening to their wacky opinions, and 90% of it just comes from, well, I saw this Facebook or YouTube video, so you don't have any of your real opinions. Got it.
They always go, do your research, and then when you go, where shall I start looking, and they give you a YouTube link.
I've got a master's degree in Facebook video academia. Yeah, congratulations. Well done.
See, there is a place, and as I said this in the original moon landing live stream, always question, especially what a government says. You always be questioning. But when you get your answers and they're not the ones you wanted, you have to be ready to accept them.
Yeah.
That's
basically
because it goes back to that video where the guy is pointing the light, and the experiment is if he holds light at his chest, it's flat, and if he holds it up, it's not. And then in the video, he ends up having to hold it up for the light to go through the hole. And it's they then have to rework. Actually, no, we were standing on a hill, so we got it wrong. But yeah. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. No, wait, how? It's the other way around one. Anyways, guys, I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Bales.
And it takes me twice as long to end because I have to end it on both TikTok and YouTube.
Of course you do.
And we are no longer live.